Today I'm going to show you how you can prepare your used car for sale to get top dollar. Today we've got this Mazda 3, it's just a cheap beater car. I'm going to show you how you can do a couple of things to it so we can spiff it up and make it look nice, so when we put it for sale it sells really fast and we get top dollar. Now the first thing with any used car is to make it a little bit presentable. Taking a look at the condition here, you can see overall it's pretty dirty. We have the mandatory fogged headlights as well as a missing fog light and a broken license plate holder, a little bit of scratches on the front bumper here and some dirty rims. And taking a look around the back here, you can see we have the mandatory Mazda rust over on the quarter panels as well as on the rocker panel over here, and of course there's even more rust over on this side here and along the rocker panel. Now the interior also makes a very good first impression. You can see this one here came really dirty. The back seat is not nearly as bad, but it is quite dusty back here. The first thing you're going to do is go ahead and remove all your personal belongings and all garbage from inside of the vehicle here, and remove all these floor mats. Driver's side's obviously the dirtiest. Hey look, I found a dime. Alright, time to vacuum. And just like that, we've got the interior all vacuumed up and it's looking a little bit cleaner. This carpet is pretty cheap and it tends to hold a lot of dust inside. One little trick is if you take your wife's old toothbrush, you can kind of get into some of the crevices here and brush out some of that dust. And just by vacuuming, I found another 50 cents. Now when it comes to cleaning the interior, I just got a cheap paintbrush here that I can use to kind of brush off some of the dust from the vents. Then we're going to use some OxiClean. I got this from the dollar store just to wipe down all the surfaces and keep it nice and clean. Then I'm just going to use a piece of my wife's old dress here to wipe that down. The next thing we need to tackle are these leather seats. We're just going to use a little bit of leather cleaner here, spray on, and then we'll give it a good wipe. And when you're done, we're just going to use a piece of my brother's old blanket here to wipe off the excess. So just a quick tip, if your carpet or floor mats are completely worn out, you could pick up a set of cheap floor mats from the auto parts store and that'll make the interior look a lot better. Now one thing, if your interior smells really bad or it's like cigarette, you can get some of that odor bomb stuff, which really helps with the interior smells and should make the car a lot more presentable. And just like that, the car is nice and clean on the inside. You don't really have to do a complete deep dive, just spend an hour on it just to make it look a little bit better. Now obviously if your car is completely trashed, you're definitely going to want to see a professional. Alright, next thing we're going to do is clean up the engine bay so it looks a little bit more presentable. Going to be using a little bit of engine shampoo. Just spray on the engine shampoo. Then I'm going to come in with my wife's old toothbrush here and scrub any areas that have a little bit extra buildup from sludge. Alright, let's rinse it off. So now I've got all the beauty covers on, I'm going to use some Armor All and make all those plastics shine. Alright, and there you have it. We got the engine all cleaned up and it looks nice and presentable. The next thing we're going to do is give the car a good wash. That'll give it a good impression from the outside. Now it's pretty cold, just a few degrees above freezing, so I will have to use the brush. This is probably where it's worth going to the car wash. I'm going to go ahead and wash the wheels. And there we have it all shined up. This color could definitely benefit from a wax, but we'll leave that for a warmer day. Now one big thing you could do to make your vehicle look a lot newer and a lot nicer is to take care of these fogged headlights. Now this headlight is pretty oxidized and I might actually end up sanding it, but I'm going to start by using some polishing compound. Alright, I'll just come in with my wife's old dress here and rub off the polishing compound to see what difference it made. I'd say it's not bad for about 10 minutes worth of work compared to the other side. I did one more round of polish here. Just gonna wipe that off. And that's what it looks like after polishing it 2 times. I think it looks a lot better, especially compared to the other side here, and will definitely increase your car's appeal. Now you could definitely take this a lot farther by sanding and re-clearing the headlight, but who are we really fooling? This is just a cheap old rusty Mazda. Now while the car is clean and you get your polishing compound out, it's a good idea to take care of some of the minor scratches here because it'll make the car look a little bit more presentable. So I can apply a little bit of this by hand first. Alright, I'll just come in with my wife's dress again and buff that out. Now not all scratches are going to come out, just the finer scratches, especially with just polishing compound. Now if your rims are really caked with brake dust, this one is not too bad. You can use a little bit of rim cleaner to help clean that up and make the car look a lot better. Come with this drill brush here. Now one thing that can really make your car stand out is a little bit of tire shine. In terms of minor easy repairs, you're going to be taking care of this broken license plate bracket as well as this missing fog light because it's cheap and easy to do. This bumper was only held on by 2 screws. Alright, looking down inside of here you can see what was remaining of the old fog light. And I went to the scrapyard and got another one for like 12 bucks, so this should just plug right in. Alright, and I got those 3 all screwed in there nice and tight. Let's go ahead and plug the light in and we'll just test it out. This side works. Looks like we need a bulb for that side. Make sure you torque these bumper bolts down to 3 inch-pounds. Alright, let's replace this ugly license plate bracket. Alright, so I got the replacement one from the scrap yard. Now while I was back here, I kind of noticed that this grill is a little bit broken, and I'm going to be throwing a couple of zip ties in here just so it doesn't fall off on the highway. And there we have it, the front end is looking a little bit more complete. Alright, so now the exterior is looking all shined up and ready to go. It's time to take a look at some of the mechanical things that we can take care of. Now, taking a look at the mechanical side of things on the vehicle you want to sell, you're going to want to look for things that are easy to repair, something that makes the vehicle presentable, but at the same time gives a good impression to potential buyers that you've actually taken care of this car. First thing you want to start with is to make sure all your fluids are nice and clean and topped off, starting with the engine oil. You can see this one here is fairly clean and it's full. This coolant is a little bit on the low side, so we're going to go ahead and just top that off. We're also going to want to top off the power steering fluid, windshield washer fluid, as well as brake fluid and transmission fluid if applicable. Next, we're going to take care of any mechanical issues under the hood that prevents the vehicle from driving properly. So for example, if you've got an issue with it idling or it's running really rough and it just needs a tune-up with some spark plugs, well, that's pretty cheap and easy to do, and we can throw that in. Now, what you really want to avoid is doing major mechanical work on a car you want to sell. So for example, if your engine's starting to make a knocking noise, or your transmission or your clutch is starting to slip, well, you're probably going to want to avoid doing so much work to a vehicle you're about to sell. Now, in this vehicle, as you saw in the last video, we changed the alternator as well as the battery. Now, both of those I bought used. This being an older car, I don't want to spend too much money, and it only ran me about $100, which is a quick and easy fix to get this car going again. Now, if there's something that's really annoying when you're driving your car, such as a screeching belt or an exhaust that's leaking, then you're probably going to want to take care of that, because that's something really noticeable in a test drive and pretty annoying to any potential customers. Next, we're going to take a look at the tires, brakes, and the suspension, because they are high wear items and one of the first places you look when buying a used car, because it'll be a big expense if you have to do your safety inspection. Now, in this case, the car came with pretty good tires. You got a lot of tread left on them, and they're matching all the way around. Now, obviously, if you got a mismatched tire or wheel, you got your spare tire on here, or your tires are really bald on their last life, you're definitely going to want to change that just to make it a little bit more presentable. You can head over to your local scrapyard and see if they sell used tires. You're going to get them for a lot less than a brand new one. Now, your tires don't have to be brand new as long as they're above the wear bar, and it can pass a safety inspection, which is definitely a plus when you're selling your vehicle. Now, we're also going to take a look at all the suspension components just to make sure they're intact. If the car's rattling on bumps and it's really annoying, well, you might want to get that addressed, but more or less likely suspension work is going to be a little bit more difficult, especially if you want to sell the car. In this case, this vehicle actually came with recent shocks. You can tell from the shock tower nut up here. Now, when it comes to brakes, it's always a positive point. If your car comes with a good set of brakes, that won't need to be changed if you have to pass a safety inspection. In this case, you can see I've got a nice set of brake pads on here. The rotors are a little rusty because I haven't driven in a little while, but if your brakes are grinding or they're really low and won't pass the safety, it's a really cheap and easy fix in order to slap a new set of pads and rotors on there. Now, the back of this car also came with a good set of pads, so I don't have to do a brake job. In addition, I do have a nice set of brand new tires at the back here, so that's also a plus. Now, you might want to fix easy stuff like a broken taillight. And of course, I don't have the right bulb in stock. Now, just like any other buyer who's looking for your car, they're going to want to make sure that all the electronics in the car works properly. Alright, so I noticed that we do have a bit of a rough idle as well as a check engine light. And I've scanned the codes and I've got P2004 as well as P101. So we're going to go ahead and clean the throttle body to see if that makes a difference. First thing you got to do is disconnect the battery. Get this battery duct disconnected here. Take off the PCV hole, mass airflow sensor. Can't trust any bolt on a Mazda, they're all rusty. Got a fresh air filter in there. Here's what the throttle body looks like. So for this, we're going to need a little bit of carb cleaner as well as my brother's sock and my wife's old toothbrush. Spray it down and then come in with the toothbrush and clean it out, and we'll just soak that plate there. That's for the mass airflow sensor, and you can see that bulb on the inside there is pretty full of carb. Now, they do make special mass airflow sensor cleaners for this, but I don't have that, so I'm just going to use a little bit of rubbing alcohol and some Q-tips to clean that up. You've also got to clean those two little thin wire resistors on the inside there, and we're going to reinstall that into here. Alright, so we've got everything all back together, battery's connected. Alright, so right away I can tell that it's idling a lot smoother and I have proper throttle response. Now, in this case, P2004 points to these two solenoids over here, which control the flow of the intake through the tumble control valves inside of this intake here. It takes intake vacuum from here and then sends it over to the two respective actuators. One of those actuators is located down here underneath the throttle body, that white thing over there, and the other actuator is located down inside of here. They're both controlled through the vacuum diaphragm. So start off diagnosing, I test the voltage here, and there's nothing here when the car's off. And now with the car running, I'm going to go ahead and you can see we've got battery voltage there, and there is vacuum here going to the solenoid. Now when I go ahead and disconnect this one, I can feel that there's vacuum going through here. I don't feel or hear any vacuum here, so something's wrong between these two. Now with the wiring having voltage, if I plug this in, it should give me the opposite condition. and nothing happens. Same thing on this one. I should get the opposite condition when I apply voltage, and there's no suction. So it seems like this one is stuck off and this one is stuck on. I'm going to apply a vacuum, and you can see that little white thing move back and forth. So that means the actuator is not stuck. Same thing over on this one. I can apply a vacuum and I can see that the actuator is not stuck. So therefore I conclude that we're going to need 2 new solenoids here because they're not doing anything when I turn them on. So another issue we've got with the car is that the parking brake does not work, and that's a big issue because this is a manual transmission. Here's the adjustment screw. It looks like it's tightened almost all the way down, so we're going to have to take a look at the back wheel. Okay, let's see if the right side parking brake works. Let's see if the left side parking brake works. So what I did to free up this parking brake cable is I peeled out some of the sheathing here. You can see it was all rusty. Put some penetrating oil in that and work it back and forth, and now the cable is more or less free. Alright, so with everything all back together at the back there, I'm just going to tighten this guy down. Then I'm going to press the brakes a couple of times just to set the back brakes in. Well, after a lot of fidgeting and adjustment, the parking brake cable actually snapped, so we're going to have to leave this for now. Now in this case, changing the parking brake cable is not really worth it on a car this old that I'm going to be selling. And that's because while the cable might be cheap, the car is really rusty. In order to get all those bolts out for the exhaust shield, I guarantee you it's going to snap and it's going to be a pain to change out. Make sure you lube the shaft and your shifter. So there you have it. We've got the car all ready for sale here, cleaned up on the interior and exterior. We've taken care of any mechanical issues that we can within reason of our labor and our budget requirements of this vehicle. And at the front here you can see, especially with the new fog lights and cleaned up headlights and that tire shine, the car really stands out as nice and clean. And of course we have to be reasonable with our transformation. We're not going to fix anything major. Now when it comes to less important repairs, let's say you got a little bit of bumper damage, your tail light is broken, maybe your window regulator doesn't work, or your mirror is busted, or maybe even your seat's ripped. Well, all those parts can be easily found at your local pick and pull for really cheap. It's always a good idea to make sure all your spare tire tools and the spare tire is there. Now another tip, depending on your budget, is to get some paintless dent repair done to pull out some dents like these that are relatively minor, as well as stone chips to touch them up with some paint. Now if your windshield is cracked and needs to be replaced, it's probably not worth the expense and the time it would take, unless if your vehicle is worth something a little bit more. But in this case, if there's just minor stone chips over here, you can get those touched up so they don't spread. Having all the covers under the hood is actually pretty good. Someone's actually taking care of the car and hasn't just tossed those away. Now having aftermarket accessories does not add to the value of your vehicle. It actually brings it down because it's less original. So for example, in this case, if you got these custom headlights, or maybe you got a cold air intake, or maybe you got stickers and lights along the side, or custom wheels, or maybe even a trailer hitch that you could sell separately, or heck, even a trailer for that matter. Now on the plus side, it's always good to list what's been done to the car recently, such as these fresh tires, good brakes and shocks, because it shows that someone's actually put some effort into maintaining this car recently. Now you're going to want to take your spiffed up used car to a well-lit place outdoors to take proper pictures. Now you might even want to take a video of the car starting up, running and driving. Now when you're taking pictures of your car, you want to make sure you get it from all 4 corners to show the overall condition of the car, if there's any potential damage. You're also going to want to take pics of the interior, again just to show the overall condition. In addition, you're going to take a picture under the hood because you did a lot of work just to get it nice and clean, as well as a picture of the dashboard showing the odometer reading and any warning lights. Now when you're posting up your ad, you want to be as descriptive as possible while still keeping it to the point. So the first thing you'll note is the overall condition of the car. In this case, it's clean and it doesn't have any issues. Any options that the car came with, such as the leather seats or the alloy wheels, any recent work that's been done. In this case, it's got fresh tires, shocks, and brakes on it. Then also state the fact that it's a manual transmission. Some people might overlook that. And any work that the car needs, you want to be as transparent as possible. And finally, the location. In terms of the pricing, I'm happy with anything over $2,000. So I'm going to put it at $2,700 with a little bit of room to negotiate. Now, it's also really important that you get all your paperwork in place, such as the ownership or any history reports, so that when you do get a buyer, things go fairly smoothly. And that's pretty much how you fix up your old crusty car into something more presentable that you could easily sell. Now, it didn't take too much time or effort. This was a pretty cheap and easy revival, and it should be pretty easy to sell, especially being a manual transmission going into the summer. This will definitely make a good first car for someone who wants to learn to drive stick. Now make sure you follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook, and subscribe if you want to see more videos just like this one. Here's another really bad tip. If your rotors are kind of cored up like this one, just clean it up. And then use my brother's old shirt to mask that caliper off, and then come in with a little bit of silver paint. And it's going to look like you got a set of brand new brakes. And of course the paint's going to wear off there with the brake pad, but all those scores and rusty spots there are going to look nice and silver.